The Association of American Medical Colleges is pleased to welcome you to today's Congressional briefing, Creating a Diverse Physician Workforce from Pre-K to Practice. My name is Sandy, and it's my pleasure to be the facilitator for today's event. I'd like to welcome the participants who are joining us today. Please note that today's call is being recorded and will be available in 3 to 5 business days. All participants' audio and video is muted. If you need assistance, please email aamc@compartners.com. This presentation will last up to 60 minutes and will include question and answer opportunities during the webinar and at the end. You can submit a question at any time using the Q&A panel at the bottom of your screen. During Q&A, our presenters will answer as many questions as time allows. We're pleased to offer closed captioning for this webinar. Just click the closed captioning icon at the bottom of your screen to access this feature. It's now my pleasure to introduce Karen Fisher, AAMC Chief Public Policy Officer. Karen? Oh, Karen, I think you need to unmute.
Thanks, Sandy. Thanks, everybody. Good day. Thank you for joining us and taking time out of your day to join us on what we think will be an informative session on building a diverse physician workforce from pre-K to practice. My name, as Sandy mentioned, is Karen Fisher. I'm Chief Public Policy Officer of the AAMC. I'm pleased to be joined by two of my colleagues, Ali Perleone and Brett Rudy, who really were the leads in putting together this briefing and who are strong colleagues with me in the Office of Government Relations at the AAMC. It's our hope that by the end of this briefing, that you will have learned more about the physician workforce and importantly, more about those critical federal programs that help many of our communities, many of our medical schools and academic medical centers increase the diversity and cultural competency of their programs. As you can see here from the slide, we're very pleased to be joined, I'm very pleased to be joined by a very distinguished panel of experts who are going to talk about what they are doing within their communities with the help of some of these federal programs to help build a more diverse and more culturally competent physician workforce. Let me briefly introduce them now so that we can move quickly as they do each of their presentations. Our first speaker will be Dr. Valerie Romero-Leggott, who is Vice Chancellor of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Executive Officer at the University of New Mexico Health Sciences Center. Next, we have Dr. Brian Gittens, who is Vice Chancellor for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion at the University of Arkansas Medical Sciences. And finally, we have Dr. Leon McDougall, who's the Chief Diversity Officer and Associate Dean for Diversity and Inclusion at the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center. He is also President of the National Medical Association. We're very pleased to have all of these colleagues join us to talk about the important programs they are doing. First, however, though, I would like to share a recorded statement by a congressional champion for many of these critical workforce programs, Congresswoman Robin Kelly, who has represented the 2nd District of Illinois since 2013 and who chairs the Congressional Black Caucus Health Braintrust. We're very pleased that she was able to, unfortunately, she was not able to be with us live, but very pleased that she took the time to record a video for us. And we're also appreciative of Megan Thompson, who helped us make this happen as well. So with that, we'll turn it over to Congresswoman Robin Kelly.
Hello, and thank you to the Association of American Medical Colleges for inviting me to speak today. My name is Congresswoman Robin Kelly, and I'm proud to represent the 2nd Congressional District of Illinois. I also serve as the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus Health Braintrust, so I'm happy to be able to join you today. As chair of the Congressional Black Caucus Health Braintrust, I've had the opportunity to study healthcare and health disparities closely for many years. In 2015, I released the Kelly Report on Health Disparities in America, and I've been working to turn those recommendations into policy. One recommendation from this report included the need to diversify the healthcare workforce and create pipelines within schools to increase the number of minority clinicians rendering care to the diverse population the healthcare system serves. We know the unfortunate story of Dr. Susan Moore, a Black physician who had to turn to social media when she felt that she was not being heard or respected as a patient. We see the statistics that Black newborn babies in the United States are more likely to survive childbirth if they are cared for by Black doctors. But we also have heard some heartwarming stories, such as Dr. Jewel Graywoods, a Black physician who braided his Black patient's hair before performing surgery through her skull to prevent having to cut or shave her head because of his experience of hair wash day with his 3 little daughters. It is truly the little things that can make a patient trust you and feel like they are seen. We know that diversifying the medical workforce improves patient-physician communication, improves trust in the relationship and recommendations given, and increases adherence to treatment plans. Based on statistics from the Association of American Medical Colleges, among active physicians, 5.0% identified as Black and 5.8% identified as Hispanic, while making up 13% and 18% of the American demographic, respectively. This is why we need to take clear steps to increase the number of minority clinicians in our healthcare workforce. The COVID-19 epidemic has shown a bright light to the health disparities we continue to battle within Black and Brown communities. For many young minorities, it was a call to action to go into medicine, with reports from some schools that the number of Black and Latino applications went up 40% and 21% respectively. By increasing exposure of our youth to a career in medicine, we not only invest in our future, but also in the lives that each provider will one day assist. This is why coming together as a profession to discuss these real-world issues is vitally important. You play a crucial role as our nation's experts to ensure access to medical school. We need you to vocalize the issues that you are seeing and help create evidence-based solutions to solve the various problems. Thank you again for allowing me to speak with you today, and I look forward to working with you. Hello.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Congresswoman Kelly, for those remarks and the important reason why it's so important to have a diverse healthcare physician workforce. And we were pleased this year to see the increase in applications from underrepresented minority populations. But we need to do more than that. And we know from the experts who you will hear today and from others that building this pipeline has to begin before medical school, before residency programs. As you know from the title, it can start as early as a pre-K programs in middle schools and grade schools. And so having that type of interventions and those types of programs, exposing those young people to these programs and the possibilities of a career in medicine is so critical. And the federal programs that help our communities and our medical schools be able to do that type of programming is critical to be able to building the pipeline that we all want to see. So with that, I'd like to turn it off and start and turn the next presentation over to Dr. Romero-Leggott to talk about the programs at the University of New Mexico Health Sciences Center. Dr. Romero-Leggott.
Thank you so much, Ms. Fisher and the AAMC for this platform, and all of you for your dedication and support and advocacy for improved Title VII funding. A special shout out to our New Mexico delegation and other members of Congress who supported the Title VII funding over the years. Title VII funding and the HCOP programs have provided us the opportunity to develop pipeline programs to meet the diverse needs of our state. And today I'll be talking about the ways in which the more recent HCOP funding has allowed us to expand our reach into additional underserved communities across New Mexico and reach diverse younger learners. Next. New Mexico's the fifth, you can go back one slide. New Mexico is the 5th largest state in the nation geographically, but 36th largest state by population, with a little over 2 million people in an area 2.5 times the size of New York State. We're one of the most rural and frontier states in the country, and as such, our populations face many barriers to accessing healthcare. Can you go back one slide, I believe? Now, this is exactly what you'll find here in New Mexico. Next. With 32 of our 33 counties designated health profession shortage areas, we know what this means for lack of access to healthcare in our communities. Next. We're one of 6 majority-minority states in the nation, and we reflect the changing face of the nation, where projections show that the US will be a majority-minority nation by the year 2045. Our linguistic diversity is shown here, with 34% of our population speaking a language other than English at home. Next. We are home to 23 federally recognized tribes, 13 Pueblos, 3 Apache tribes, and the Navajo Nation. And each tribe is a sovereign nation with its own government, languages, lifeways, traditions, and cultures. Next. One of the critical ways in which we respond to the needs that we've described is our Communities to Careers pipeline programs. We're committed to growing New Mexico's diverse healthcare workforce in partnership with communities across the state to create sustainable K-20 educational health careers opportunities for our diverse youth. And as our logo depicts, we believe in growing our own diverse health workforce from our communities in New Mexico. And just as critically important is that these students, when they become health professionals, return and serve their communities. Next slide, please. We have built a series of highly integrated pathway programs from elementary school to the health profession schools, directly serving over 550 participants a year. It's critically important to ensure that our programs are in communities. Our community partners are the true leaders of the K-20 programs, and through their knowledge and networks, we're finding promising practices for the future of communities to careers. But I cannot emphasize enough the importance of beginning pathway programs as early as possible and offering exposure to as many different health professions as you can. It's so important, especially for our first generation students, to see that here are some of the things that you can be and to begin dreaming and striving to achieve those dreams of a health career. Next, please. This map is a depiction of the regions of New Mexico where our Communities to Careers pathway programs are located. Now, previous HCOP funds and partial subsequent institutional support informed activities that are primarily in the central turquoise areas you see there. Current funds have allowed us to now expand regionally across our rural state and increase the numbers of students reached, as you can see here in our green, red, purple, and orange areas. Programs informed by HCOP federal dollars directly served over 2,500 students over the past several years, and the current funding has the potential to serve another 1,000 plus learners in New Mexico. We work with hundreds of community partners each year to make this possible, and with the frontier and rural nature of our population, investing directly into communities and having a presence there through community programming and partnership has been critical to reaching more of our underserved students. Now, what you see outlined here, specifically regarding K through 12, are the current HCOP funds that have allowed us to expand into high school programs, which are our Health Careers Academy and Dreammakers, focusing on early health professions exposure and academic preparation. Next. Jade Rael is a perfect example of the importance of the community-based, culturally relevant programming that occurs in our Communities to Careers. She's a member of the Picoris Pueblo and a Santa Fe Indian School Health Careers Academy graduate. She'll be attending UCLA in the fall. And this Health Careers Academy solidified her interest in medicine, and she found a love of nutrition. The experience also brought home to her even more that as an Indigenous person, just how crucial she is to health and well-being in her community. Next, please. One of the major goals of Communities to Careers is to diversify New Mexico's health professions to better reflect the populations we serve. So this happens because we've been intentional about recruiting students from our communities and working with and in communities. So you can see that we do reach a substantial number of our diverse students each year, and over half are first generation college students. And what I can tell you is that the reach into our rural communities increased from 54% to the 74% with this new funding expansion. And another example of program outcomes is the difference in graduation rates of our Health Careers Academy students. So from previous funding, our HCA participants showed 91% graduating from high school compared to our 69% for the statewide average graduation rate. Next, please. Let me just introduce you to Amore Martinez. She hails from rural northern Las Vegas, New Mexico, and was a participant in both Dreammakers and Health Careers Academy, and was recently accepted into our very highly competitive UNM BAMD program. But Amore feels that these programs really afforded her opportunities she would never have had, nor could she have afforded an ACT prep class, something that she felt gave her a competitive edge in the college application process. She's also proud to be a peer educator, where she's now a role model to the next generation. Amore is committed to returning and serving her rural hometown of Las Vegas. And Jade and Amore are exactly the students that these Title VII funds are created for. Next, I'd like to introduce you now to Dr. Erica Garcia as an example of the HCOP impact in communities. Dr. Garcia comes from Eastern New Mexico and participated in 3 of our pipeline programs. She then matriculated into School of Medicine and Family Medicine residency. And this banner that you see at the top is the day that she came for her first job in a rural community right near her hometown. And the banner was across, and she was so excited. She sent it to me, but it just gives you a sense of how important this is to communities. And all these little kids were coming up to her and saying, Doctora, Doctora, we saw your picture. Are you going to be our doctor? And she was just so touched. And then she has continued to precept in the programs that she participated in. And most recently, what you see at the bottom is the clinic that just opened in her hometown, where she's now the medical director in this family medicine clinic. And she feels the biggest impact that she felt was that she feels a cultural void with her Spanish-speaking individuals, especially the females. But this is a perfect example of why HCOP funds are so essential to our communities. Next. So in closing, we'd like to ask that you support the $980 million for the HRSA Title VII programs in this next fiscal year, because this request would really allow us to potentially double the number of students who could be inspired and impacted by these programs, and increase our reach across New Mexico into even more of our rural, underserved, and diverse communities, and to reach even younger learners, and all in service to New Mexico. Thank you. Next slide.
Good afternoon, Karen. Okay. Karen,
No, please go ahead, Brian.
All right, no worries, no worries.
Go ahead, just jump into it.
All right. My name is Brian Gittens, and I serve as the Vice Chancellor for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences. I'm going to talk to you about our pipeline programs in general, but I'm going to focus mostly on our innovative MedTrack program. Slide. Slide, please. So as you can see from this graphic, I know it's hard to read, but I just want to show you that we recognize that this work happens on a continuum. We have programs that range from our kindergarten program with our junior and STEM academies all the way through undergraduate education. And some of the things I want to highlight is our new ramp up program, which is focused on high schoolers. Because in order to have students that we can engage in undergraduate, we have to have them successfully get through high school and get the correct prerequisites in order to be accepted into undergraduate education. We do this through a number of ways. We have our Ramp Up program. We have our Academy of Pre-Health Scholars program. We have our Summer Athlete Scholars program, which is a new program for us. That was a program designed specifically to target minority boys in high school. Oftentimes, because of summer and sports and things like that, students are forced to make a decision between being engaged in summer enrichment programs or attending football camps and the like. So we picked a program and kind of integrated that with sort of a sports curriculum, focusing on what's called the dead period, where in the state of Arkansas, at least, athletes are not actively participating in sports. We also found a gap with some of our undergraduate programs where we were engaging students in their junior and senior year and not engaging students in their freshman and sophomore year. And we created a pre-health scholars program to address that gap. The neat thing about us is that we are the only academic medical center in the state. So we have a statewide outreach. And what I do is I leverage our 8 regional sites for our programmatic needs. Slide, please. Today, I want to highlight our collaboration with our historically Black colleges and universities in the state, specifically Philander College and University of Arkansas, Pine Bluff. This is a unique partnership between the HBCUs and UAMS. And the idea is to focus on students who have an interest in health careers or STEM type disciplines. Because what we found is that often they did not receive the guidance and support needed to successfully prepare for and matriculate into health professional schools and careers. The MedTrack program works with HBCU site directors, department chairs, and campus professors. So we actively engage the professors and the institutions. As a matter of fact, one of the neat components of this program is that we actually have a site director who's embedded and actually has an office on these campuses. And to date, a total of 129 students have enrolled in our HBCU MedTrack program. Slide, please. With regard to program overview, so we both have a pragmatic mission as well as a research mission. And the purpose of the research is to identify effective methods of addressing the social determinants of health and education. So we're utilizing the HRSA funds to look at our programs, to monitor our programs, to evaluate our programs, and continuously improve them. What we found was, in terms of problems, that our students had limited STEM rigor and testing. They had a lack of healthcare mentors and low exposure to higher ed health careers. And through the MedPreg program, we wanted to increase the testing and testing scores to prepare them to be competitive outlets. We also wanted them to have enrichment programs and advisement to help them to be better students. And lastly, we want to ensure effective mentorship. Almost every research study out there shows that effective mentorship and sponsorship leads to academic success. Slide, please. With regard to program demographics, at Philander Smith College, which is the smaller of the HBCUs, you'll see a chart that shows the various undergraduate majors, most of which are in biology and chemistry. You also see the breakdown of race. So this shows that the program is really hitting its targeted audience. You also see the demographic breakdown with regard to males versus females. Slide, please. With regard to one of our largest sites, which is the University of Arkansas for Pine Bluff, again, you'll see that we are hitting our target audiences. We see the undergraduate in majors, mostly in the health sciences type areas, as well as we're hitting our African Americans. Now, Arkansas has about 16% in African American population. So obviously we want to focus on increasing the level of concordance in healthcare careers. Slide, please. I'm going to go over some key components of the program. The first of which is test preparation. Unfortunately, one of the barriers to admission into graduate schools and our professional schools has been the MCAT and related tests. And so we created a systematic approach to prepare our students for these testing opportunities. The program uses exam crackers and Princeton Review for the curriculum. We also use professors in the institutions to help students with the test questions, identifying problematic areas and addressing them. Slide. With regard to results, because of this funding, this program has been tremendously successful. When we reviewed sort of pre and post on the WMC pretest versus the actual test, we saw the following. We saw 91% of the participants showed increases in the overall scores. 89% showed increases in chemical and physical biological systems. 56% showed increases in psychological, social, and biological foundation section. A third showed increases in the card section, and 44 showed increases in the biological and chemical foundations living system section. This is very important because these are students who otherwise would not be competitive for admission into our professional schools, admission to graduate schools, and any other of our professional programs were it not for this testing enrichment program. Slide, please. Other enrichment programs include a new program that we started about a year and a half ago, was the Anesthesia Tech Gap Year program. So this is where students actually get paid and get exposure. And that's good within itself. But what also happens is that they get the opportunity to gain mentors, gain sponsorship as they start to work side by side with UMS researchers, and clinicians. We're creating a healthcare career preparation center. This is a brand new project where it becomes sort of an epicenter at the campuses of our HBCUs for students to attain information, support preparation, technical assistance, able to research there, as well as prepare for testing. We're looking to start this program in August of 2021. Slide, please. Other enrichment programs include our Leadership Development Project. That's designed to support students through their gap year, with students serving as leaders at UAP and PSC, which is Philander Smith College. They're serving as project managers for all the enrichment activities. So basically, we are hiring these people, these students, to work within our programs. This provides an opportunity for exposure and to develop other skills. So oftentimes with our students, it's not just the reading and arithmetic, if you will. It's also the psychosocial elements. It's giving them confidence to be leaders, developing leadership skills and connections with our faculty and staff. To promote the work that they're doing, we create the HBCU journal development and the media outlets. And so it's designed to feature the work being done within our regional programs and through the MSC grant. And the HBCU podcast. Again, we're starting this program in the fall, and this to connect students throughout the state of Arkansas. What this does is provide some role models for other students who might be interested in these programs, as well as create an outlet for students to get comfortable with talking about their research and or their experiences. It's well documented the shortage of African American men, in particular, in medicine. And so we're working on the expanded HUE, Helping Underrepresented to Excel project. The target audience is URM males from 9th grade through college to help address the shortage of URM males, providing these wraparound services. In order for diversity, equity, inclusion to work, we have to be intentional. We have to target things. And so this program is designed just for that. And thanks to the HRSA grant, we're able to accomplish this. Slide, please. Results. This is what we're looking for. And the program is fairly new. We've been in the process for about 2 years. So these results are preliminary, but we have shown our students are getting accepted into some of our professional education programs. And this is just at UAMS. So they're actually going to other places across the country as well. But you'll see that we have 6 who are accepted to our College of Health Professions. We have 5 accepted to our pharmacy school. We have actually 7 into pharmacy school and 7 into our public health curriculum. We have 0 who are accepted to our medical school, but this year we actually started a post-bac program at UMS. And I'm happy to report that we have 6 students who have been offered admission into our College of Medicine post-bac program. So these students will undergo an additional year of preparation and mentorship and coaching that will prepare them for acceptance into medical school and application next year. Slide, please. When I think about continuing needs, having involved as a co-investigator on the HRSA grant, some things include, we need to continue to longitudinally track our students to assess the impact of the program on diversifying the healthcare workforce in the state. So my dream would be to be able to have some sort of tracking system where I'd be able to know whether that students who go through this program are staying in the state and continuing to the diversity of the workforce. Also, I'd like to be able to assess the impact of the program on equitable access and health equity of the citizens of the state. It's well documented that in Arkansas, health disparities are a problem. And I like to be able to track and be able to report that this program is actually having an impact on health equity. In order to do so, we need to continue to invest and expand investment in needed technological and business intelligence systems to support research and program evaluation. One of the things that's missing is this level of infrastructure. How can we track students throughout this continuum, through our kindergarten programs, all the way through these programs, so we can assess the impact, so we can look for the leaky parts in the pipeline and develop process improvements and then to get people back in the track. How can we assess what's working and what's not, and ultimately the impact we're having on the state? Another need is, I think about the barriers to success for some of these students is direct assistance to students. Sometimes students don't have the funds or resources available. Even when I think about things like the post-bac program, enrollment costs, expenses associated with that, to have some flexibility and latitude with regard to taking away these barriers from our students. I want to remove any barriers to success. Related to that, I'd like to allow, one of the needs is to allow for more latitude and funding to address the unique needs of institutions. Whether we talk about capital projects, when we talk about that center, the technology center, we're talking about direct scholarships and things like that to really remove any barrier. When I think about our pipeline programs, the mission is simple. A is to keep that light on, that light of curiosity on for students as they explore healthcare careers. Oftentimes, you'll meet a kindergarten or elementary school student who's very excited about science, they're curious about the world, and I want to keep that curiosity going throughout their academic career and have that parlay into a healthcare career. And secondly, I want to support the mission of all of UAMS as the only academic medical center in the state to ensure equitable access and equitable quality care for all of its citizens. Slide, please. I want to say thanks to the HBCU team who helped to gather this data and put this information together. And I also want to say special thanks to Senator John Boozman for his continued support of both the MedTrack program and other federal initiatives associated with supporting UMS as the only academic medical center in the state, and our Arkansas Congressman French Hill for their continued support of UMS and diversity initiatives. Slide. And other key collaborators, as you can see on this list, it's not just the HRSA grant, it's not just our division, it's not just the College of Medicine. It takes many hands to make life work. And you'll see that we have UMS departments, we have our partnership again with UAPB and Philander Smith College. You'll also see that we have individuals who are key in this, as well as community organizations. Thanks so much. I look forward to your questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Leon McDougall. I'm the Associate Dean for Diversity and Inclusion at the Ohio State University College of Medicine. And before I start here, I just want to thank and acknowledge Congresswoman Robin Kelly, the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus Health Braintrust, as president of the National Medical Association. We work closely with her and the leadership of the Congressional Black Caucus. And this afternoon, I'm going to speak to you about a very special program at the Ohio State University College of Medicine called Medpath, Medical Pathways. Next slide, please. Medpath was established in 1991 through funding of Title VII and HRSA. And what we saw, in fact, was that it led to doubling of the diversity, equity, and inclusion for our medical students. And after the initial grant period expired, the University and College of Medicine actually took over administrative support of the program. And so want to speak to the historical legacy of investment. And so with that, to get started, well, let me just share a bit more about it. We accept up to 15 students per year into MedPath. It is a conditional acceptance program. One has to apply to Ohio State via the AMCAS applications, similar to what other medical students would. And out of that group, we look through the applicants and we find students who we don't think are quite ready to matriculate into the College of Medicine, but we see them as having high potential, especially as it pertains to providing care for under-resourced and underserved communities. So we extend a MedPath application to those students, and usually around 150 or so people are in this group, and we select 30 of them to visit or conduct virtual interviews, and then that becomes our 15 students with the conditional acceptance. With that, we provide tuition support. It doesn't necessarily cover all of the tuition, and that's where additional HCOP funding would be very helpful in that regard, especially as it pertains to helping to cover some of the living expenses. We also require our students to retake the MCAT and score at the 51st percentile. That's one of our prerequisite requirements prior to matriculating to the College of Medicine. We've had really good success in looking at our longer term outcomes. We conducted a randomized control group study of other graduates of our College of Medicine compared to our post-baccalaureate graduates and found that 68% of our students were providing substantial care in underserved, under-resourced communities where 40% or more of their patients were medically indigent or poor, as compared to about 33% of the other students graduating. And we also found that about 47% of our post-baccalaureate Medpath graduates were volunteering their services for free outside of their normal practice, as compared to about 11% of the other students. So I'd like to really share, just as they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. I want to share a testimonial here from one of our current students, actually, who'll be graduating this year. So if we could play the video, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Miguel Ruiz, and I'm fortunate to tell you that I'm a second-year medical student here at The Ohio State University College of Medicine and Medpath alum. Thrilled to be in front of you today to explain to you what Medpath was able to do to my story and have helped me become in front of you here today. My story is very a traditional American story. My parents decided 30 years ago to move here to the United States and to seek greater opportunity. We moved to South Florida to a Hispanic immigrant family community where we were embraced and helped acclimate to the United States. Everything I know about hard work, resilience, respect, humility, I learned from this community. Unfortunately, we didn't have that many experiences or examples of how to excel in the American education system. We didn't know how to take standardized tests. We also didn't know what mental illness could do to your education. It was just thought if you had one, you just didn't have what it took, and you had to find something else to do. So students like myself had to trailblaze, and that's what I did through high school, through junior college, through a four-year university. I had to find ways to make it. And I even had to trailblaze through medical school applications, which was something that nobody in my community had ever done before. And I was able to get one opportunity, which was the Medpath program. And thankfully, it was the exact opportunity I needed to excel. I learned study skills to accommodate my learning style. I've had formal training on how to perform in standardized tests. And most critically in my situation was I was diagnosed with ADHD, something I didn't know I had until the Medpath program, and I was able to find treatment and skills necessary to overcome these education barriers. Medpath made that possible. It also made it possible for me to discover another passion, which was serving these communities like the one that I grew up in. Currently, I'm working with La Clinica Latina, which is a student-run free clinic here in Columbus, where we're trying to establish a health literacy class for this very same community. I'm also fortunate to be a part of the Cupid Research Program here at the James, where it is a program that's designed to expose students like myself that are underrepresented in the medical community and expose us to the field of oncology and how to address some of the disparities in care for communities like where I came from. I know that Medpath is the way that we can accomplish this goal. Thank you.
So really wanted you to have an opportunity to hear from one of our excellent students and And so you can see firsthand the impact of the Health Career Opportunity Program system and the importance of Title VII. And personally, I would like to see, next slide, please, if you could move forward as far as the slides. I would like to see more sustained long-term funding. It seems like every year we have to come to Congress to obtain continuing funding for these vital programs, ranging from the Health Career Opportunity Program, Center of Excellence, and the scholarships for disadvantaged students. I'm just pleading for a longer and sustained amount of funding. These programs are working, and thank you for what you have done and continue to do. And so that's the end of my presentation.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. McDougall, and to Drs. Gittens and Romero-Leggott. I think it's so important to see faces surrounding these programs. And I think also what we've learned today too from the presentations, and we can talk more about it during the Q&A, is that this really is a partnership, that there is federal funding involved, but there's so much more. There's community partnerships. There's the people involved in this at the grantees, et cetera. And so we really see these programs as a partnership to really make a difference in improving the diversity and cultural competency. But at the same time, we also have to recognize that was laid bare in COVID, not only the need for a more diverse and culturally competent workforce, but also that we need more physicians. I think many of you know that the AAMC annually puts out a physician workforce report that projects physician workforce for the future. And our most recent report is showing that a physician shortage range of between 54,000 and 139,000 by the year 2033. So we need more physicians. We need more of all healthcare professionals, but we know that we need more physicians. And part of that issue is looking at the medical schools, but also looking at graduate medical education programs. And let me talk a little bit about the federal partnership that the federal government is playing in terms of producing physicians and more residents. And that relates to what happens after medical school. And I think probably many of you who are on this are aware of this, but the physicians don't go out and practice immediately after graduating from medical school, but they go through a series of intense clinical training with other healthcare professionals under the supervision of attending physicians called graduate medical education. These programs can range from 3 years to up to 8 or 9 years, et cetera. There must be sponsors. Not anyone can sponsor graduate medical education programs. About 20% of the hospitals in the country do some form of graduate medical education. At the AAMC, our large academic medical centers are about 5% of the hospitals, but train about 75% of the residents in the country. Those programs also require a partnership because they're not insignificant in terms of cost and commitment by the program, by the medical schools and the teaching hospitals where those residents train. As you can see here on this slide, the Medicare program since 1965 has helped to offset some of those costs by sharing in reimbursing for some of the costs based on the Medicare proportion of their patients within teaching hospitals. Unfortunately, in 1997, due to a myriad reasons, Medicare capped this support at the number of residents that were being trained in the country at 1996 levels. Well, that's just unsustainable, particularly now in a time where we need more physicians going forward. Sorry, I couldn't hear what you said. Whoops. More physicians going forward, not less. We're very, very appreciative. If we move to the next slide, Brett, we're very appreciative that last year, Congress recognized the need to provide additional residency positions, supported positions, by providing 1,000 additional cap slots, as we call them, in the end of year legislation. And that's a great, important first step, but more needs to be done. And as you can see, there's been introduced the Resident Physician Shortage Reduction Act of 2021 in both the Senate and the House. It's bipartisan in both bodies. And you can see what would be provided to provide additional Medicare supported GME slots to help increase the overall number of physicians produced. And each slot is not a physician. Each slot basically corresponds to a residency year that a physician would need to train. So we're not looking at 14,000 necessarily new physicians every year, less than that, but we need those slots to be able to produce those new physicians. And as you can see here in the last bullet, the legislation also directs the Government Accountability Office to commission a report on looking at the physician workforce diversity, which we're very excited that that is in the legislation. Let me go to one more slide so that we have a little bit of time for questions, Brett. So you can see this really is a partnership if we're going to build the infrastructure of healthcare going forward. And that means more physicians, but also more culturally competent and diverse physician program. And you heard passionately our speakers talk about that partnership and the hard work they are doing within their communities. And I think Dr. Romero-Leggott talked about working with over 100 community partners in New Mexico. But that funding in Title VII is so critically important. As Dr. McDougall mentioned, it is a tough slog every year. We need a significant amount of additional investment in these programs, and now is the time to do it. And we need the types of programs like the Health Careers Opportunity Program, scholarships, the Centers of Excellence that you heard about, other programs such as minority faculty loan repayment. And finally, we need more additional physicians by helping Medicare continue its longstanding commitment to help offset the cost of the graduate portion of physician training by increasing the number of CAP slots through the Resident Physician Shortage Reduction Act of 2021. So with that, I think that's my last slide, and I hope some of you have been holding up questions for all of our panelists going forward. I must say, I heard Dr. Romero-Leggott. I think that's the first time I knew that there was a Las Vegas in New Mexico. So that was something we learned today. Let me start to take a couple of questions, if that's okay, with our panelists. One is for Dr. Romero-Leggott. Could you talk more about the community partnerships you have developed? What kind of partners do you work with? What do the partnerships involve? And do you have any programs for elementary level students?
Thank you very much, Karen, and thank you for that question. Yes, so I'll say that our community partners range from volunteers in the community, most certainly the educators, right? So we're in our, elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, community colleges, branch colleges, every type of, our tribal community colleges and our tribal colleges, any of our healthcare workforce, the hospitals, businesses, anybody in the economic development there, because what we're hoping, first of all, they're the people who know their communities, they know their students, they know the needs and the strengths of their communities. So we give them a framework and we offer, our quality metrics and the framework in which to do the programs, but then they customize that and they really educate us on how best to do these programs and run these programs. They've been incredible. Our federally qualified healthcare centers have been strong partners, our area health education, the AHEC centers. It's just been amazing, the people in these communities, like what we learn. And I just love, and I can't wait till now, as we can get back to seeing people and everything, but to go and be there in the communities with people and just be learning and seeing and talking to them and connecting, right? I will say though, I have to say that with COVID and the Zoom, it did help us actually connect, because we're so rural and frontier, connect our students and faculty, the partners a little more certainly than, of course, in person type of things. We do have some elementary school programs. They are not funded by the HCOP funding. And I'll just remind people that this is the first year, this last funding session, that included, went to high school students with HCOP funding. Before, it had always been college and higher, now high school. So we would love if they would, now get younger learners, middle school, elementary. Yes, we would love that. So thank you for that question. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks so much. We received another question for you, Dr. Gittens, and maybe you can verify the questioner's premise too. The question is, do you observe a social adjustment need for the HBCU's graduates who matriculate into the University of Arkansas, who the questioner says is predominantly white environment?
Absolutely. So one of the things our office does in addition to outreach is that we're focused on student retention, student success, as well as their engagement in the university. We actually serve as the advisory for several associations, including our SMMA, our LULAC, which serves our Hispanic students, our Rainbow Alliance as well. So we ensure that our students have a place to go if they ever have issues or needs. We link them to various resources across campus, including our Student Success Center. And we're also working on developing some of our own resources for underrepresented medicine students as well. Our students have advisors, our students have trusted colleagues that they can connect with, and we're developing a mentorship program as we speak. As a matter of fact, we're leveraging some of the funds from the HRSA grant to develop that, to ensure not just getting students in, but ensuring their success once they matriculate.
That's fabulous. Thank you so much. For Dr. McDougall, a question came in about Medpath. Is it a combination of post-baccalaureate coursework plus the AMCAS prep professional development, or is it coursework only? I think that's for you, Dr. McDougall. If you can unmute. Did we lose Dr. McDougall?
I think we might have lost Dr. McDougall. We'll work to get him reconnected.
Okay, great. Maybe given COVID, and you mentioned this, Dr. Romero-Leggott and Dr. Gittens, you talk about the impact that COVID has had on the programs, both in terms of the challenges, also, as well as the need for these types of programs going forward. What have we learned from COVID going forward?
I'll jump in, I'll start if you don't mind. I think COVID presented challenges obvious to us all, as well as opportunities. A lot of our summer programming, our camps and enrichment programs have been sort of centralized in and around UMS's campus. But a lot of us got really, really good at using Zoom and virtual platforms. So we're able to project more effectively our programs across the state and actually engage more students. We had to pivot very quickly, and we found ways to be creative using breakout rooms and different functionalities along various programs to increase engagement. But more so, we weren't limited by space. We weren't limited by some of the infrastructure costs sometimes associated with having programs on site. And so moving ahead, I think we're going to have a lot of these more hybrid models going forward. So we can hit remote areas of our state. Arkansas is a mostly rural state. And so we're able to do that. We're able to provide, working with the school districts, have broadband access for some of these students so they can now participate in some of the activities where heretofore they weren't able to. So while COVID presented several challenges, it's also presented several opportunities that we've learned and had to adapt.
Wonderful. Dr. Romero-Leggott?
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Gittens. I would agree definitely with you. It's expanded the reach that we have for so many, especially in the rural areas, as you said. So definitely about that. I think it's an incredible opportunity for us to, like you said, be nimble and pivot and do these things. So what I'll say too is that it also, some of our programs, of course, we weren't going to have intensive 6-week summer program with our health careers with students, but we, followed educational guidelines on how many hours a day people could be on Zoom, and did things to pivot in that way. But what we learned is a couple things too in that whole process is, one, that most certainly especially for our teachers. It brought a lot of them together, networking our teachers together. But one of the things that I'll say is in the communities, I just want to say that I think these programs became more relevant to students as well. And what we were talking about when we talked to them about the need for health providers and why we need this, because they were seen firsthand. They have seen it already in their lives, right? They live this in their communities, but even more so with COVID that impacted our populations of color and our native tribal communities. Jade Rael was she just said it brought home to her, especially because of COVID and what happened in the tribal communities, how important she was to the community to go back and practice there. So I think COVID alone, the impact in these communities really brought home to students more. I think they knew that. They do, all sorts of community projects and connections, but somehow, this, like all of us, it just really touched us in that way. So I will say that I'll just add that piece to it. But otherwise, yes, other opportunities to reach out and have more people. But what we know too is it's always the specialness of being one-on-one when you can actually be with people is just incredibly wonderful too. So hybrid, yes, you're probably right. Thank you.
Yes, and thanks, Dr. McDougall, for coming back. We had a question for you. And if you wanted to talk about the impact of COVID on your programs as well, feel free to answer that question. The question that had come in was, let me find it here, is Medpath a combination of post-baccalaureate coursework plus AMCAS prep, or is it coursework only?
It's a combination. So the students take upper level science courses, for example, in the fall semester, courses such as Physiology 601, and then that's followed in the spring semester with the MCAT review led by Princeton Reviews, usually from January through early May. And so you can look on our website to find more specific information about the courses and so forth. Those students have to maintain a 3.0 in higher level science courses. And also there's a pre-entry program that's 6 weeks prior to matriculating to the College of Medicine, involves anatomy, histology, immunology. In regards to COVID-19, that has impacted everyone, and from a standpoint of causing, I would think, more stress in regards to the person's daily life. So thank you for asking that question.
Well, listen, given the time, I appreciate all the questions that came in, and we want to make sure that we end on the hour. I will talk about a hybrid model. If we were doing this live on the Hill, we probably, given the room size, would be able to maybe squeeze in 100. By virtue of this hybrid model, doing it on Zoom, we were able to have almost 250 people participate in this briefing, and we're very appreciative of that. We talked a lot about particularly the appropriations funding for the Title VII, we call them programs, the diversity and pipeline programs. The AAMC does help convene with a large number of other health profession and patient groups, almost 100, and a coalition called the Health Professions Nursing Education Coalition to help advocate the critical federal funding that's needed for these programs. And my colleagues Brett, Rudy, and Matt Schick and others can certainly, for those of you who are coming from congressional offices and would like to learn more, please feel free to reach out to me directly if it's easier, Fisher, KFISHER @aamc.org, and I'll get you to Brett and Matt to talk about more about these programs. But I'm very, very appreciative to very busy people today. That was with Dr. Romero-Leggott and Dr. Gittens and Dr. McDougall taking time from you today. We hope you did learn more today, everyone who was on, to talk about the real people-centered nature and importance of this programs going forward. We hope you have a great day, and we look forward to talking to all of you more in the future. Sandy, I'll turn it back to you.
Very good. Thanks so much, Karen. So with that, we will conclude today's program. This session has been recorded and will be available within 3 to 5 business days. On behalf of the Association of American Medical Colleges, thank you again to our speakers, and of course, thanks to all of today's participants. Have a great afternoon, and you may now disconnect.